Hey, good afternoon and happy Labor Day weekend, everybody. Hope everyone's having a wonderful weekend. This is Eric Simkin, and you are watching and tuned in to the Political Badass Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about everything education. And when I say everything, I mean really everything that's wrong. It really is a cross section of American culture and everything we're seeing from immigration to massive spending to the way our federal government's being run and mishandled. Those same things are happening at a state level, and they're happening all the way down and trickle down directly to the local level at your local school board. So, what happened to me this week? Well, my blood was boiling. I attended a school board meeting on Monday night, and I was listening to what was going on in my local district here in Voorhees Township, Camden County, New Jersey. And I was pretty shocked. And there's not that much that really shocks me. It's the way they're spending money, it's the curriculum, it's the power and control that they're giving to the superintendent of schools. In our case, the superintendent of schools, her name is Dr. Hackett. She was working for another township nearby called Willingboro Township. And she had applied for a job back, I guess, in 2019 with the district. And they chose a different candidate. His name was Dr. Gentile. And when I first got involved back in, I guess, August or July of 2021, I went to a school board meeting here locally in town because I was concerned about what was going on in my kids' district in a neighboring town. And I was thinking that if our school was not going to open full time for in person learning in a town called Marlton, that I would have to consider moving my kids in with me. They live with their mother nearby, and we have a great relationship and we co parent very well together. But one thing I don't do well is co parenting with the government. And that's what we're being asked to do. They are trying to really get between us and our children. And at a parents' rights rally a couple years ago that I spoke at, I met a man from communist China. And when he described to me what he left in China, he didn't say I immigrated here. He didn't say I moved here. He said I escaped to get here. And he escaped communism. And if we look back and roll things back to a couple weeks ago, we were talking about 1963 and what was going on in our country. And at that time, there was an infiltration of communists. People that came from communist Russia, for example, infiltrated our institutions, especially our colleges. And they came up, Congress did, with sort of a manifesto, basically a description of what the communist goals were at the time. And when you look through that list, I don't know, there was about 45 different items of things they were doing. Infiltrating the media, controlling the media, suppressing information, promoting communist ideals, and things of that nature. And when you look at this list, you know, some of these things are directly related to education because I don't know if you know this, but in our country, we have 50 million pupils, 50 million children in the public school system. And in New Jersey, I think we have about 1.1 million. So it is a really big number of students and families that are directly affected by our education system. And it's gotten really bad. I mean, they're promoting ideas and ideals and ideology, you know, anything from critical race theory, which they mask under the term anti-racism classes and protocols and curriculum, radical transgender and sex and sexuality ideas, all being promoted. But number 17 on that list was get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum, get control of teachers' associations, put the party line in textbooks. Guess what, folks? We don't even have textbooks. We have text tablets now. And what that means is that the information that's being conveyed to our children can change in an instant. You know, you could change one word in a piece of curriculum from do to do not, and it totally changes the parameters of the class, of the education system. And really, what they want is to establish some class warfare. But in a capitalist society, you have a lot of people that believe in capitalism. I mean, the overwhelming majority, obviously, because we all live and we breathe free air in the United States of America. They also, under number 19, wanted to use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Just think about that. Moms for Liberty, they just had their symposium and gathering this week. And actually, President Trump attended and gave a great interview and just went over talking points of what's going on in education and really what's going on in America. And most of that conversation really teetered around illegal immigration. And one of the things I saw at the school board meeting I went to Monday night was talking about how they're changing what they're calling students that don't speak English. They're English learners now, ELs, they like to call them. They love putting tags and identities on people. They're looking to put people into subgroups, and they talk about what they're accomplishing with the scores. They talk about, bridging the gap and closing the gaps between subgroups. And the subgroups are white, Black, Hispanic, and Latino, Asian, things like that. And they throw a lot of other protected classes in there. But one of the things that was mentioned that threw an alarm in my mind was that they don't tabulate or keep track of scores or anything if the subgroup has less than 10 individuals on it. So if you're talking about, 50 individuals, in subgroups, 10 in each one, then you have 50 people. But how many subgroups do they have if they're proclaiming that they don't count the subgroups with 9 people? How many students and how many participants in these grading programs are not being counted? And that being said, when the superintendent of schools was introducing somebody to give some reports, and this was the annual report once a year. And pretty much every school district gives that report and gives the what's called the iReady scores, which are standardized tests in New Jersey, as well as the NJSLA, the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment scores. Well, guess what? In Voorhees Township, if you have a kid there, and even if you don't have a kid there and you're a taxpayer and you're concerned about where your money's going and how it's being spent, they weren't prepared to deliver the actual scores at this board meeting. However, I do know for a fact that the scores went over in great detail at the high school in the district, which is Eastern Regional High School. So why did they not have the scores ready? We were told by the superintendent, and I'm going to show you here in a minute on a video I put together. It's a longie, but there's a lot of information to cover. But they said that the state had not given them all the information they needed to formulate their results and put it into a presentation. So just in a moment here, I'm going to play a video I put together. There's a couple of technical glitches in there that I couldn't resolve before this broadcast. But I do feel that many of the points in this video are very, very important, of the utmost importance if you have a family. And so I'm going to play it anyway, and I'm going to sort of walk you through it. There's a couple glitches, like I said, so bear with me. As you can see, I'm running solo today, but that just means that I'm going to be ranting and raving about all the stuff that really makes my blood boil. So let's take a look at the video, and then we'll circle back around together, and we'll go over some of these points.
Hey, Houston, we've had a problem here. Can say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Simpkin, and you are watching the Political Badass Podcast. This episode is really an expose about what's going on and what's not going on at the Voorhees Township Public School District under its current leadership. You really need to take a look, take a listen, and then I really suggest that you investigate for yourself. If you have a child in this school district, you really need to look at who's running things and what they are proposing to do. It's dangerous, scary, very expensive, and they are really good at wasting money. Please pay close attention. This really matters. Thank you.
Just as a note, Mr. Moskowitz will present the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment Spring 2024 results in September at the September board meeting. We do not have all of the information from the NJDOE to present this evening. So he will present the NJSLA data at the September board meeting. So we'll begin with Ms. Donnelly and followed by Dr. Alegria, Ms. Ross, and then Ms. Lyons.
Good evening, everyone. I am presenting the district annual report. Every year, the district puts together a report that summarizes the previous school year. So this is the 23-24 report. It's 78 pages, so I'm not going to share with you all 78 pages. However, it will be posted on the district website tomorrow. But basically, every department, every school, every administrator provides a summary of the year for whatever their special area is. And then each school does it. So it's a lengthy report. Everyone does pitch in. I just put it all together and kind of organize. So it will be posted tomorrow. It's under the district tab that you can find all of our reports. So that's basically it. That's the cover page. Try to get some shots of different kids, all different ages for you. So thank you.
You did see that Dr. Hackett said the reason we weren't getting the report tonight is because the New Jersey Department of Education did not send them all the information. The New Jersey Student Learning Assessment scores are in the 78-page presentation. So was it a lie that the New Jersey Department of Education didn't provide the scores, an excuse, or some other reason to postpone the report by the assistant superintendent? Doesn't make sense to me. The scores that Dr. Hackett said were not received are in the 78-page report, and they start on page 12. The scores are all on the report starting on page 12, but who knows what these scores really mean? Are we doing well? Are we doing bad? Who knows? It's up to you to figure it out. Just about every other district that I've heard of, they've already had a presentation by their assistant superintendents of curriculum. Why haven't we? Next, we're going to take a look at all of the radical and mostly illegal policies that this board is trying to pass. A school board only has 3 jobs, the first of which is to select curriculum that will best serve the needs of the community in which the school district is based. As you can see, this school board wants the superintendent to have full control over the curriculum. They don't even care if they review the curriculum or vote on it. This is a policy that we actually took from another district, Gloucester Township, and tried to adopt it as our own. It's basically an effort to dissuade board members from asking questions and getting information from the school administration. As you'll see later in the video, School Board President Monica Watson, she can't stand when board members ask questions. It almost is like she doesn't want anybody questioning their authority. Building projects are not just challenging for this district, they're a complete nightmare and total waste of money. This board put away $250,000 to connect the administration building to the county sewer system, period. They thought it was going to be $250,000 based on the professional advice. Here it turns out it's $613,000. Dr. Hackett decided to put a private bathroom next to our office in the administration building. That project was not even itemized on the budget that was just passed by this school board. Back in 2021, the Board of Education, they had to drain the $4.3 million they had in reserve. They said that if they don't use it, they would lose it. So they tried to house all the kindergartens from the entire district in the Crescent School building. Only after the money was spent and the project was complete did they realize that there was too much traffic for buses, so they couldn't use the school for the intended purpose of housing the kindergartens. Now keep in mind, Wawa is building a huge market and gas station right next to the TD Bank on Route 73. There's going to be thousands of cars dumped onto Crescent Road. There was no room for the buses, but there's room for thousands of cars. Something doesn't add up. And now the Board of Education is building a $15 million pre-K facility. It's not even located in Voorhees, it's in Gibbsboro. If they thought that the sewer project was going to be $250,000 and it ended up to be $613,000, how much do you think this $15 million project's really going to cost? And do we have the money? What if we don't? So let's take a look at who's running the school district. Dr. Neely Hackett is the superintendent of schools for the Voorhees Township School District. In April of 2020, Dr. Hackett became the superintendent of the Willingboro Public School District. And on July 1st, 2022, Dr. Hackett proudly assumed the role of superintendent of schools for the Voorhees Township Public School District. Why would a superintendent of schools of Willingboro seek to break their contract to come work for Voorhees? Dr. Hackett was being pushed out of Willingboro. Her fiance at the time, the deputy mayor of Willingboro, was just indicted for mortgage fraud, and she was the buyer of the home upon which the indictment was made. Here's a recent news article that showed that her fiance at the time was the one who did the fraud on the mortgage for the house that she lived in. Nate Anderson, her then fiance, also gave her a check for $13,000 so she could complete the purchase of the property. This is according to the FBI documents. That same councilman, her fiance, also scammed Willingboro out of money by helping a friend win a lawsuit against the town. Birds of a feather, they flock together. These people are really good at draining budgets and money from townships. Here is the news clipping when Willingboro councilman was accused of assisting ex-manager in a lawsuit against the town that he serves. The two pictures in the center were on the website for Willingboro when Dr. Hackett was hired by Voorhees. You'll see the word restorative practices. Restorative justice and practices are the top tenet of the Black Lives Matter guiding principles. Black Lives Matter is a radical organization, and it's also a Marxist organization. It has no place in our schools.
Is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
Monica Watson is a school board president. She abuses that power, and most people that have dealings with her consider her to be a bully.
Make a motion to approve all the items in your curriculum.
So moved.
Second.
I just wanted my questions answered before I'm able to make my vote.
There's no answers to your question. Everything was disclosed to you as to how the changes came about. You were provided an email explaining the rationale, explaining who was involved in the discussion of rationale.
But Monica, as president, you're not allowed to act as our representative.
I didn't, that's why it's on the calendar right now. Randy, I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you. I explained why and how it came about. We went through the process. It's the appropriate process. If you do not agree with the calendar, you can vote no. That's the end of this discussion. There will be no further discussion.
My name is Eric Simkin. I would like to correct the record. There was a decision made on this board when Dr. Falk presented his vote to appoint Ms. Ketchum to the board. That's point number one. Point number two, deliberations are supposed to occur in public, and I just don't understand why there can't be any comments or back and forth between board members during a public meeting. It does violate the Sunshine Law, and I will send the letter as such. Thank you.
All right, so this motion will be for Mrs. Ketover.
Correct. Motion for Mrs. Ketover to fill the board vacancy spot.
Wait, can I just ask a question? Can I ask a question before we
Yeah.
vote? Monica, don't you have a personal relationship with Julie, like a business relationship? So would that void your voting for her, or?
I do not, for the record, I do not have, so of course I know Julie. I know everybody in this room. Half of them are teachers of my children. Half of them are community members that I know. Julie, I met in 2018, not that it's any of your business, but I met Julie in 2018, and Julie is a professional coach. And so she was my coach in 2019 for 6 months. That is the extent of the personal relationship or professional relationship that I've had, that I paid her for her services. I don't care if you beg to differ. That's the relationship that I have.
So does that not?
That does not present a conflict.
It's a violation to nominate your friends for the board. According to the code of ethics.
Laura, I just have concern that you paid her as an employee or.
But the relationship is over, so there's no conflict of interest.
Well, do we know?
No, nominating a friend is
She
nominating a friend.
Does she currently coach you right now?
No, she
You already
does-
answered that, right?
She coached me in 2019. That is it.
The point was nominating a friend is still a conflict of interest, according to the code of ethics.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You should.
Board, can we continue?
Yeah, continue.
All right.
If there's any more disruptions, please.
All right, I'm opening the voting. Opening the voting.
So that's the board solicitor, Frank Cavallo. He works for a law firm called Parker McKay. Parker McKay is owned by a guy named Philip Norcross. If you recognize the name, It's because Donald Norcross is our congressman in CD1 in New Jersey. Isn't that interesting? So they have this whole machine that's designed to promote a political agenda in schools. I mean, politics really have no place. Partisan politics don't have a place in schools, do they? Not according to these people. They think it's all good. I don't. Let me tell you a little bit about how my love affair started with the Voorhees Township Board of Education. In 2021, like I said, when I was thinking about moving my kids, I went to a school board meeting there, and then I went to a Meet the Candidates night. I met these two women, great women, Tara and Deb, and they were running for school board. They were fighting like hell. They were talking about this policy that I didn't fully understand. It was called policy number 5756. Policy 5756 is basically a spinoff of the LAD, which is the Law Against Discrimination. So these educators decided that they need to really protect the LGBTQIA plus community in schools starting in kindergarten. That if a student decides that they want to be called by a different name, change their identifying pronouns or anything of that nature, that the school could do so without the parent's consent and without the parent knowing about it. So I would ask you as a parent, raise your hand if you know for 100% fact that your child is called by the same name that you call them, that they use the same pronouns as in he and him in my case, because if you ask me what my pronouns are, I would tell you they're effing obvious, okay? But these people, they want to make people feel special. You could feel special. You could feel part of a group if you identify as something different that's on your school registration. So what's the school do? They have the right to start a whole new file on your kid. So like I said, raise your hand if you know for 100% certain fact that your child is being called by the same name and pronouns in a New Jersey public school that has policy 5756. And I'm saying to these women, wow, that's a big deal. But what about critical race theory? And what about this, that, and the other? I mean, they were masking our kids. Speech went totally dropped as far as, people's ability to speak, because you got a kid wearing a mask for 2 years. They're going to have some problems understanding how to learn how to speak. And so they create a crisis that they can then come and try and solve. Doesn't that sound familiar? It really should. It's called communism. That's what communists do. They create chaos. They separate people into small groups, subgroups, so that those subgroups can start infighting. And then when they fight, the government can come along and say, hey, don't worry, I got your back. I'm empathetic. I'm an ally. You want to know what the word ally means? They've got a whole separate set of definitions that me and you do. They define ally as a person that has a privilege, could be race, could be any kind of socioeconomic status, and you use that privilege to help others that don't have that same privilege. So that's why when we look and we say, why do these people want people to be such activists against something? Why do you have to be anti something? Why can't you just be for something and accept people for who they are? That's how I was raised. I was raised in a household that we would consider to be colorblind. And in my household, I was raised by two public educators that understood that their job, that their pay, that their whole life was really surrounding on providing the absolute best education that the township that they worked for could provide to children. That's the role of a school district. And the role of a school board member is basically set up on three tenets. They are to frame policies that provide the best education to the children of the community. They're to derive curriculum from all the choices out there to make that town special, provide the best curriculum so that we excel in academics. And then their job is to oversee the budget and make sure that the money is spent in the best possible ways. Because I know this, I work very hard to live in my town, as we all do. And in New Jersey, if that's where you live, about a decade ago, when Chris Christie was governor of New Jersey, one of the very few good things he did was create a school tax cap. What that meant is that the schools could only increase the taxes by 2% per year to cover the increase in costs of running a school district. Well, this year, the New Jersey legislature very quietly added a new policy that changed that whole rule. And now they can increase the school taxes by up to 10% per year. That's right, up to 10%. Just think about what you're paying in taxes. Is it $10,000, $12,000, $20,000 a year for your local taxes on your property? Well, guess what? They were only going to go up 2% due to the school tax increase. but now they can go up by 10%. So on a $10,000 bill, you're talking $1,000. I mean, that's not critical thinking math. I mean, that's basic math right there. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. They don't even teach that stuff anymore. They don't teach kids how to memorize their formulas and all that stuff. They look at averages, 10 minus 4, that's less than 50%. So maybe it's like, I don't know, 6. That's how they come up with the math. They don't teach you how to do the math. They don't teach you to memorize the problems. They want your children actually to have problems that you can't cure. Because one of the things on this communist goals was to create problems with children that are so complex and complicated that only trained psychiatrists can solve. Meaning you can't parent your kid out of a problem that they might be having when they're very little. And that brings me to a point when they spoke about the special education needs in the district. P.S. My mother was a director of special services in a school district, a very large school district here in South Jersey. She retired, I don't know, about 15 years ago, maybe a little longer. And so I had to actually call her the other night and ask her, because the numbers I'm hearing on special needs children that are being classified by the school district is staggering. Okay. There's 3,000 kids in the school district here in Voorhees from pre-K to 8th grade. 3,000. Of that, about 2.7% of them have been classified by the child study team as either needing some sort of speech or special needs or special education. However, they just started a pre-K program in the district in 2021 where they outsourced the education to basically local childcare places, but they were under the supervision of the district. And the number that I found staggering was that, I don't know, out of the 3,000, there was roughly 72 kids that were classified last year as special needs, learning disabled, speech needs, and things of that nature. But out of the pre-K, there's only 149 kids that were enrolled last year, unless I read the report wrong, which is possible because it wasn't really presented properly. But out of that, almost 50 kids were classified. So 50 out of 150, over 30%. I think it was actually over 40% is the real number. 40% of kids are being classified. Why? Do they have speech issues? I mean, I'm not doubting that there's kids that have problems, but are we dealing with the cause or are we dealing with the effect? What is the cause of that happening? Is it something in the water? Is it something the parents are doing wrong? I mean, could someone help us to figure out the statistics? It's a really massive number. And going back to that, the communist goals, like I said, they're looking to destroy from within, and education is a great place to start for them. I mean, one of the other problems that we're facing is the NJEA, the teachers union. They're not really looking to improve the working conditions of teachers. I mean, all I hear from teachers, and I grew up, like I said, in an educator household, we never flew on a plane. We never took vacations. We would get in the back of a station wagon. And if I got thirsty while we were driving for 10 hours to go to New Hampshire, for example, which is somewhere we used to go, and I loved it. And I had great summers with my family. And I'm not complaining, but if I asked to stop for a drink of water or a soda, my mother would hand me a pack of Trident and said, here, chew this and swallow your saliva if you're thirsty. We weren't spending all kinds of extra money on stuff because we didn't have it. It's a 10-month position. It's a tough job. It requires all of your skills, dedication, and hard work. And then you get paid very little to be a teacher. I mean, I think the average teacher salary in New Jersey is $70,000, but it costs $180,000 to feed a family of 4 in New Jersey. So how's that going to work out? How are teachers able to compete and survive in the state within where they teach? It's sad, but the NJEA, they're supposed to be working on all that, right? They're supposed to be helping teachers in their working environment. Not at all. I mean, it may be some of their expertise and some of their agenda, but really, they're a political action committee. They're a bunch of political activists. Just this weekend, I saw on Facebook a post by the NJEA that was so proud to announce that the teachers that were in the NJEA were out canvassing. They were canvassing for Harrison Walls in Pennsylvania, which is a swing state. Listen, I'm canvassing too. I'm making calls in Pennsylvania, but I'm not being paid by a district. And P.S., if I'm not mistaken, school starts this week. I mean, isn't there some preparatory things that a teacher could be doing instead of walking around trying to get Harrison Walls elected? I mean, do you know what's going to happen if they're elected? I'm looking at where am I going to live? Argentina's looking pretty good to me. I mean, they've got a populist leader now. I mean, I'm not hanging around and waiting for all this to happen. I'm looking at how am I going to protect my family and stop it from happening. And that's what I need all of you to do. And I mentioned earlier that Moms for Liberty, they had a big gathering this weekend down in Washington, D.C. President Trump was there. Here's my question. It's called Moms for Liberty. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of dads involved, but I go to a lot of school board meetings. Where are you, fathers? What are you going to do about it? You going to sit there and let your family get touched by a government? Are you out of your minds? You really need to start paying attention to what's going on, what's being taught to your kid. I mean, if a stranger on the street walked up to your kid and started talking about masturbation, blowjobs, and anal sex, what would you do? Because that's what the teachers are doing. They have the right to teach about all this stuff at whatever age they want. They decide what is age appropriate or not. You don't get to decide. You better get involved. What's the first thing you do? Go to a school board meeting. Okay. All I want to hear about from my friends and people that watch this podcast is how many people went to a school board meeting this week. And if you don't, you're failing yourself. And even worse, you're failing your children. Look around inside your house. Okay. It should be empty. There should be your family in it. But guess what? The government's in there and they're touching you. And you may not know it. And that's even worse. But I saw it in my own household and I did something about it. What made me get involved? What made me get involved was when my daughter came home and said, Dad, it's weird. They asked me today in high school who flies an American flag at their house. And I said, okay, you told them it's none of their business, right? Of course, Dad, it's none of their business. But the lesson was about how that's racist. Now we're talking about the summer of love in 2020, I guess, with George Floyd and BLM and all the activism going on. And it's no good to be white and white privilege, white for fragility, 1619 Project, LGBTQ, IA+. All these kids are going to commit suicide if we don't affirm their gender. Okay, let me explain something to you, folks. Okay, there's two sexes, male and female. That's it. There's no such thing as gender. Gender is a socially constructed thing, that how you identify. And there's unlimited personality. So if you identify as something different than your biological sex, clearly it's part of your personality because it's internal. It's part of your mind. It's part of your soul, but it's not how your body was created. And that's okay. If you feel different, I know plenty of tomboys. I've known plenty of effeminate men, but they didn't say that if I take these pills and hormone blockers, which there's no such thing. There's no such thing as a puberty blocker. They're hormones. So if you're a boy, they're giving you girl hormones. If you're a girl, they're giving you boy hormones and then doing surgeries on you. These are children. They're making decisions on their own. And they're taking the parent out of the equation because they don't need your permission. They don't need to tell you what's going on with your child because they know what's best for your child. They know better than you. That's what they believe. I can assure you. When my daughter went to Rutgers last week and I took a look at the curriculum there and what are the options, I was pretty upset. They make you take these core curriculum classes in colleges, and especially in state colleges. And the core curriculum represents, 30% of your college life. And they want you taking classes like if you're in the communication schools, women and people of color in the media. Okay. My daughter has no intentions of becoming part of the media, and she's not a person of color. Is she a woman? Absolutely. Do I believe that women compete in the workforce? I do. I do believe they compete. Have women been treated unfairly? I'm sure they have. My daughter won't be, though, because she lives in a time where those things have been corrected. And if you're not doing well at what you do, maybe you need to look a little bit at the merit that's getting you there. It's not just because you're a woman. It's not just because you're black or white, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, whatever other subgroup they want to put you in that's going to dictate how well you do at life. That's just not how it works. I mean, I've always been in a work environment where you eat what you kill. You're on commission. You earn your money. And if you want to earn more money, you just do better at what you do and you attain those goals. But that's not how they're showing kids how to attain their goals these days. The teachers union in New Jersey is pathetic. It's actually run by a guy, the president, named Sean Spiller. Unfortunately, the Democrats are putting him up to run for governor in 2025. I could tell you with 100% certain fact that if he wins the election, I am out in New Jersey. Adios. See you later. And you're on your own. I'll go help another state because no matter where I live, I am not going to tolerate this stuff. I'm not without a fight, not without letting people know what's going on. What are you going to do? You're going to show up at a school board meeting. You're going to make sure that every single person at that board knows your name, and not in a bad way. You could be friendly with them. It works. It'll work. You can be friendly. They like to hear people that are supportive and quote unquote pro education. And that's what the NJEA looks to do. They look to elect pro education candidates. Please, NJEA members, or President Spiller, please tell us what pro education means. Why is there a line in the sand that defines the difference between being pro education and pro parents' rights? I got news for you, NJEA, in case you forgot. A parent has the sole right to direct the upbringing of their child. PRPA, it's the Pupil and Parents' Rights Act. USC code 1232. It gives parents the ability to go into that school district and say, I want to see every book, every piece of information, video, letter, anything I want to see. You need to open up your books and let me take a look at it. That's what you need to start doing. You need to look at the curriculum pages on their website. Look at the stuff they're teaching your kid. What are they grading them upon? If they're teaching your kid something, that means your kid's getting graded on it. So if it's CRT, critical race theory, looking through the lens, that's a word that you need to look at in your curriculum. Reimagining, that's another commie term that you need to look at. That's another reason I got involved. The first school board I went to, I saw that the school board was sending a bunch of teachers to this symposium called Reimagining Education. And I'm like, what needs to be reimagined? And why are we imagining things? Why aren't we talking about truth and facts? You know why we're not talking about truth and fact? Because it's like holy water and garlic to Dracula. Okay. They don't like truth and fact. They like ideas, ideals, ideology, theories, evidence-based. Okay. Evidence-based, fact-based information is what I'm into. I'm not into anybody's theory. If I wanted to learn about theory, I'll buy a book or I'll Google it. But as far as what you're teaching my kid, reading, writing, math, science, English, history, not social sciences, not about sex and gender and ideologies that really have no business in a school district. At the end of the day, the people that are responsible for teaching children values, virtues, and beliefs are mommy and daddy. That's how it works. And it expands to family. But the line stops at what they call trusted adults. Who do you trust to educate your kid? Who do you trust to teach your kids' values? Me. That's who. That's who I trust to teach my kids the values, virtues, and beliefs. And believe me, in my family, we take that very seriously. The epitaph on my grandfather's tombstone says from Deuteronomy 6:7, and now shall teach them diligently to thy children, to my own children, the word of God. That's what I want to be teaching. And P.S., I'm all for putting God back in schools. These people say church and state separation. That's not what the separation of church and state meant, take God out of schools. What it meant is that the government couldn't form a religion and make you abide by it. Well, guess what? The new religion is DEI, and that's exactly what they're doing for as long as you tolerate it. How long am I going to tolerate it for? Not 1 minute, and I'm not giving them 1 inch. When the school board in Voorhees Township, when I didn't like what they were doing, I didn't even have a kid in there. They were doing things that were wrong. The vice president of the board, she worked for a single sign-on company for educational technology. She made a whole boatload of money, even from our school district, selling her products and services to our school that did much better when the schools were closed. They were doing so much better that her and the current president, Monica Watson, they actually brought a motion up at a school board meeting saying, hey, we don't want school to return to in-school learning. We want everyone except special needs kids to stay home when every other district was going back. And I said, that is a fire alarm going off. What do? I don't know. I went on Google and figured it out. There's this whole ethics department over at the Department of Education. Now, granted, it's a legal system. It's called the Office of Administrative Law. This is where you go when you sue to get something for your kid that they're not giving you, which you should be able to get, like an IEP, an individualized education program for someone with special needs. They fight tooth and nail on parents because it costs money. They're trying to limit their budget, but they're spending $613,000 to hook up to a sewer system in an administrative building. Guess what? When I first met, and I told you about these women that I met at the school board, Tara and Deb, they were telling me that this school board, they fired the old superintendent that they had just hired in 2019. They got rid of him. They didn't just fire him. They put him on administrative leave, paid administrative leave. They had to fulfill the contract. So they're paying this guy $190,000 a year to sit home. Why did they pay him $190,000 to sit home? because he wanted the kids to return to school normally with no mask, no nothing. Just go to school. We'll take a risk. These are children. The evidence doesn't support the kids are going to die if they don't wear a mask. I want every kid in there. And then the other thing he wanted to do is when they wanted to bring all the kindergartners into one room, he didn't want to build a new building. He wanted to take the administration building that he's sitting in that used to be a school and turn it into the kindergarten place. Well, they didn't like that because that didn't allow them to spend the $4.3 million they wanted to spend. Why are they looking to spend so much money so quickly like drunken sailors? You think they're getting a piece of it? I don't know. They could be. I'd have to look at their books and records, grab their cell phone, look at their text messages, because they're supposed to do everything with school business. They're supposed to be doing that on school technology, emails, but they don't. They use their personal cell phones. You don't get subpoena power unless you sue somebody for something criminal or civil. And really, that's what it comes down to. So I filed an ethics complaint against these people, and it took a year to resolve it. And it ended up getting tossed and dismissed because they didn't have the authority, because the things that they were doing were so wrong that it was beyond the scope of the ethics department to handle. That's what happened. So here we are, a few years later. Scores, I don't know what they are. How's your kid doing? You think they're smart? I don't know if they're smart because I don't know the scores because no one went over them with us. For the $21,000 per pupil that they're spending, you don't even get their report card. That's preposterous. And this NJEA, they also fought to keep schools closed and keep masks on your kids and under the guise of protecting the teachers. That is a bunch of bullshit. Okay, that's not why they did it. They did it to level control over us, keep things shut down so we can go through the Great Reset. Problem is they ran out of time. They couldn't keep us locked down any longer. It was just untenable. So here we are. They're still trying to do the maniacal things. A few weeks back, actually it was in the beginning of July, a friend of mine called me and said, hey, they're having this NEA conference, National Education Association, over in Philadelphia outside the convention center. So, you know, if you know me or if you don't know me, I ride around in bullhorn in my truck. Okay. And when I see a protest, I hop out and I get on the right side of things and I start going to town. I don't get violent. I'm just talking to people. So when I found out that this was going on, I said, hell yeah, I'm going. So I get in my truck, get my bullhorn ready, and I get into Center City, Philadelphia, 8th and whatever. And I'm seeing all these people in blue shirts walking around. So I grabbed the bullhorn. I grabbed the sign. The sign actually said, protect children, not pedos. Some of these educators came up to me and said, hey, are you calling us pedophiles? I said, hey, if the shoe fits, wear it. If it's bothering you, you know, maybe there's a concern we need to talk about. But no, it's just a general sign saying protect children, not pedos. So I was out there on the street saying, hey, something's wrong here. You got no business telling our kids what we're going to learn. And what was going on the inside is interesting. Take a look at this and just let this be food for thought as far as what educators are looking to do with politics and what their overall objectives are. Just take a look at this lady. This is the president of the National Education Association in Philadelphia, and me outside.
Because in the midst of every challenge, during every moment of change or perceived chaos, we will remember who we are. We are the ones who helped to shape the heart of this nation's hopes and dreams.
Stop the indoctrination and sexualization of children in public schools. NEA is not an elected office or official. They have no right to influence the curriculum, the policies in our public schools.
Because our students are depending on us to win all the things. NEA, we have to win all the things, all the things, all the things. Keep going, NEA. To preserve our democracy, we must win all the things. Won't go back. We will keep going forward because we are the NEA. We are the NEA. We are the NEA. And that's what we do.
Parental rights, parental rights, parental rights, parental rights. Parental rights rule, and they are the rule of law in America.
I wouldn't want that lady or anyone like her within 1,000 yards of my kids, and I don't think they should be allowed. If that's the kind of stuff you're spewing, you need to find another occupation. You've got no business being around a school a library, or anything of the sort where there's children. That is ridiculous, pathetic, and scary to me. And if it doesn't wake you up, I don't know what will. But these are the people that are around your children when you're not around. Okay? I wouldn't drop my kids off if that was the babysitter, would you? Do you interview your babysitter? Do you know who your kids' teachers are? It's 10 o'clock a.m. Do you know what your kid's learning? Here's what they're learning. They're learning a curriculum that's infused with all sorts of diversity, equity, inclusion in every subject: math, reading, science, social studies, gym, every little thing that they could possibly talk about with subgroups and all these things is in your kid's curriculum. Okay. And then you wonder why a kid can't add 2 + 2. You wonder why your kid's got no life skills. Okay. They call it 21st century life skills. Let me tell you something. If that's a 21st century, okay, no, thank you. Let's find another way to do it. Here's my advice. Pull your kids. If you have the financial and mental capacity to pull your kids, it would be the best thing you could do for your family. I promise you. There's plenty of things to socialize about with your kids and other kids that are being homeschooled. If you can't afford it, I understand that. We all work hard to pay the taxes. You have to talk to your kids every day. You don't sit there and go and let your kid come home and say, "Hey, son, what'd you learn about today?" "Nothing." "Oh, okay. And is everything good?" "Everything's fine." Those are two answers that are going to lead your family down the wrong path. I can assure you. Okay. You got to ask open-ended questions. You got to teach your kids the words to listen for so that you know when there's a problem with an individual teacher. That's what I did. I said, I heard those words and that is a problem. And I went into that school and I was promised that that will never happen again. And it didn't. And that vice principal at Cherokee High School, he told me, if your kids ever need anything, they can come knock on my door and I don't care what I'm doing. I will help them. Your kids are in the best spot. And guess what? He was not lying. He totally met that obligation that he made to me. And I'm very thankful for it. But what I'm trying to explain to you is that you need to know who's educating your child, just like you would know who's babysitting. All right. So one last thing I want to go over, and that is what is the political alliances of the teachers and educators educating your children? So on that same day, July 5th, 2024, at that NEA convention, this guy Fitz comes up to me and says, and he's the one that asked me, "Hey, what's that mean? You saying that all educators are pedophiles?" I said, "I'm not saying anything like that, but if the shoe fits, wear it." Remember? This guy Fitz had a few things to tell me about what he's learned about. He's an anti-Trump guy. Obviously, I'm for Trump. I'm for the Republican Party. I mean, how can you possibly vote Democrat these days? Okay, they're a bunch of commies, really. I mean, it's sad to say. I mean, I grew up in a house that probably my parents voted Democrat for a long time because they were educators. You know, we came here from another country generations ago, like many people. But the Democrat Party's changed. And what's so hard to admit about that? It's changed from being the party that protects people to the party that hurts them. And that's just what's going on. If you don't agree with them, you're canceled. You're done. You're only good for them if you're preaching what they're saying. And as soon as you stop, that's when they cancel. You see it every day in the political arena and social arena that you're seeing. So let's take a look at what Fitz had to say about politics. I thought this was really interesting, and it really goes to show you how bad the media is. The media is a big problem. It's got to stop. But take a look at Fitz. Go ahead. Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, Trump's a rapist.
He's a rapist. Were you there? Were you witness to something? Were you witnessing something?
I trust the women that said he's a rapist.
Really? So you trust the fact that Jean Carroll said in a post interview? Oh, who? Who else?
I think there were 27 women.
27? Oh, interesting. Where are you getting your news from? Where do you get your news?
PBS.
I got you. I have a website called ericsimkin.com. You should check it out. That's me. And it has a lot of solid news sources that you can get an unbiased filtering from. I would suggest take a look at it. ericsimkin.com. It's not self-promotion. It's just a good news source.
What happened on January 6th?
Do I agree with what happened to it? What happened on January 6th? You mean
like a bunch of people stormed the Capitol?
I believe that if you peacefully assemble, you have that right.
Peaceful.
There were some bad apples in there, but there's also a lot of federal agents involved too. How's Roy Epps doing? Is Roy Epps still Ray Epps? You don't know who Ray Epps is? Right. I really think that you need to get some good information from other sources. And then you get. I am. I'm getting it from you right now, Fitz. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. All right. Are you pro sexualization and indoctrination of children in public schools? You for that?
Do that. And we also
I hope
do
not.
CRT. I had to look
You
up
don't do that?
CRT.
You don't know what it is?
I did not know
Do you
what
have
it
an
is.
anti-racism program in your curriculum? Do you have anti-racism programs in your curriculum?
Yeah, pro inclusion people, like
Inclusion? Okay, I got you. So, yes, he does. I asked 5 times. I said, I'm
There
just
is no
going to go.
consent. I'm right here. No consent. Phone
Okay.
shut down.
This is a single.
Shut
This
down.
is a single
Okay, peace
consent
out.
state.
We're out. Fuck off.
Okay, enjoy yourself. Have a nice day, Fit. And she gave me the nice and friendly fuck off. How nice was that? But it didn't bother me a bit. What bothered me is that where does this guy get his news from? And he's educating children. And then she must be educating children too. And she thinks something about a consent state that I can't take a video of someone talking to me. When they volunteered to speak with me, I told them I'm going to put my camera there. It was right in front of his face. So these are the people educating your children. Would you have either of those two people babysit your child? I wouldn't. And if you would, God bless you. I hope your child comes out all right. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to head off to do some relaxing for the holiday weekend. I hope you can do the same. But what I want you to remember is that knowing the information is one thing, but what are you going to do about it? That's the real question that you have to ask yourself and answer to yourself. Because if you're not willing to do anything, you're lost, and it will be your loss. So I follow a guy, his name's Stephen K. Bannon. He's in prison right now in Danbury, Connecticut, because he refused to answer a subpoena by the January 6th committee. He was an advisor for President Trump back in 2017. And they wanted him to come out and talk about what was going on January 6th. I don't think he's the guy they need to be asking. I think they need to ask the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi. But he refused to answer the subpoena because he said, listen, President gave me that, conversation. We talked all the time, but that's covered under immunity. That conversation's private, and I don't need to talk to you or anybody else. That's why that exists. But he's sitting in prison. And so you really need to ask yourself, what is your task and what is your purpose? If your purpose is to protect your family, you need to start looking at education right now. And then you got to find the tasks that are going to perpetuate the overall win against what we're losing, which is the educational system. So here's Steve Bannon for you. I'm going to leave you with that. I hope you have a great, happy, and safe holiday. God bless you. God bless your family. And God bless America.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host.